Welcome back to Courtside with GametimeCT. This is your place for high school boys and girls basketball from across the state of Connecticut. I'm the girls basketball beat writer, Scott Ericson, and with me, as always, is the boys basketball beat writer, Joe Morelli. Joe, how are you?
You know, Scott, I'm doing just fine, but I will tell you that not having told, a couple coaches reached out, so they actually picked it up and saw the first edition of our return podcast, so people are paying attention, and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. If someone didn't notice, I'd feel bad if no one knew we were out there. I got a couple. I love the podcast, like the podcast, so that's good.
Right.
Right.
I think the fact that it's shorter time in this, that both of us combine, they can come to one place to get it at GametimeCT and wherever you see your podcast on YouTube. So again, I think it's something that will pick up more and more people as we go along.
Even my 13-year-old son knew about it, and he doesn't know about anything. So he said,
my 9-year-old is not interested. But
oh yeah, Stan came up to me and said, "So this kid from Notre Dame, is he really that good? What kind of offers is he getting?" And I said, "How do you know about that?" He said, "I saw it on YouTube."
I said, "Who's that guy? The bald guy? Who's the bald guy? Who's the bald guy with you, Dad? Why can't you just do it by yourself, Dad?" Yeah.
Joe, one thing I wanted to ask you before we got started, you wrote a really interesting story. I don't know how you noticed it, if you just saw it at a game, but the pregame handshake line. I know that's another thing that a lot of people are talking about right now. Did you see it? Did someone tell you about it? How did that come to be?
I had heard about it, and it was on my radar. I saw it in one game I was watching online, and I kind of knew I wanted to touch base on this at some point. I wasn't sure if it involved the girls. It does. Basically, for those who did not see it, you can read the story at GametimeCT.com. The SEC is experimental basis pilot program is experimenting with pregame handshakes versus postgame, both boys and girls. It was an idea from Eric Petchowski. He is the New Haven Citywide Athletic Director, something he saw when he was on vacation in London. What I will say is not everybody's doing it. Some are, some forget. Some are doing it. I've been to enough games where there's a lot of emotion after a game. And I'm a traditionalist as much as the next person. Sometimes there have been issues. There have been fights that have come from the handshake line. More so the boys than the girls. And I don't think it's
talk to that just don't like this. I mean, that just don't.
Well, I think people are forgetting. I think people are like, why? I think a couple of the girls coaches I spoke to, like, why are we being penalized for the boys doing it? Again, I don't think it's the worst idea I've heard. Right. I'm a traditionalist. I get it. I don't know if it's going to stay or not. But what I will tell you is there's no issues having it before the game.
Right, yeah, because you're not running hot at that point. You shouldn't be fighting with anyone at that point.
Yeah,
I will say, though, the post-game handshake line is kind of like a symbolism thing, though, where you played a game, you played hard, and now it's like, all right, we're going to shake hands, everything's cool. And I know there's been a couple problems, but I really like the end the game thing where it's like, all right, we all played hard. We're all acknowledging that by shaking hands and moving on. I don't know. I mean, it's not a terrible idea, but I don't love it. I don't love it. I don't know how you feel.
I don't love it, but I've heard worse ideas. There's been worse things. And remember, and SEC Commissioner Al Carbone made a good point. He goes, remember what happened during COVID? We couldn't shake hands. We all had to wave anyway. So, again, it's an experiment. I mean, it's not like you have to. And again, it's just the SEC teams playing each other. This is not a non-league game. So Sacred Heart Academy won't be doing that up at the Hoophall Classic when they play on Saturday against Christ.
It's better than eliminating the handshakes altogether, I guess. And oh man, I mean, there were so many weird things about COVID basketball, but the waving.
Yeah, it was tough. Look, it was in the game I covered last week, West Haven Hill House, and that was a highly emotional game. I'm not saying something would have happened in the handshake, but I don't think it prevented it from a possibility of happening.
Yeah.
So I'm not so much defending it. I'm just saying I try to see both sides of the issue. It's not the worst idea I've heard. I think it's okay if it prevents a fight. Unfortunately, you just don't know. But yeah, for the most part, we're traditionalists, Scott. And I think having it after the game is the way it's supposed to be. But sometimes, again, there are issues that do boil over after a hotly contested game.
Yeah, and I give him credit for trying to fix a problem, right? Like, you got to try to do something. I don't fault them for that at all.
We'll see what happens. I mean, CIC's interested in seeing. I mean, again, it's anything that benefits the game and prevents a fight. I'm for.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like 100%. You said, the majority of these games, people can get through a line without having an issue. And as one coach said to me, if the adults can't control their kids on their own team, then what are we doing? So that's part of this too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we talked about that a little bit. Joe has a story up on GametimeCT.com. You can go read about it, read the quotes from the coaches, all that stuff. Every week here, we're going to look at the top 10 polls. I know the boys poll is out. The girls poll is going to be out. Joe, let's talk about this boys poll. What's happening? Who moved around? What's the top 10? Let me see it. Let me see it. I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it.
You want to see it?
I'll give it to you. I wait every Monday to see the poll here.
Well, since you vote in the poll, you should want to know what's going on.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to see if I'm smart or not.
Okay. All right. At number 10, we have the Windsor Warriors. They lost 2 games last week. They lost for the second time to East Catholic. They also lost to Manchester. Windsor was up 27 points in this game at home, and they blew the game. So, but they managed to stay in the top 10, and again, they're going to see Manchester again, so it remains to be seen how they will do the next time around, this time on the road. At number 9, Colby Cathedral. They moved up 1 spot last week with wins over Brookfield and Weston. They have a big one on Tuesday night against Notre Dame Prep, an SWC matchup. At number 8, the one new entry for this week, the Hill House Academics, coming off their win against West Haven, 64-48 last week. They've had a brutal schedule. This week, they're playing Notre Dame and West Haven, and they're playing St. Bernard, that one on the road in Uncasville. So it remains to be seen if they'll be in this poll for long. But again, they've had arguably the best schedule for the first month of the year. At number 7 is Staples, one of 2 undefeated teams left in the top 10. They were able to beat both McMahon and Norwalk, and so far they're the only unbeaten in the FCAC. At number 6, Northwest Catholic from West Hartford. Beat both Bristol schools, beat Conard. They only win over St. Bernard. They're in the same spot as last week. Also in the same spot is number 5, East Catholic. They have a big showdown at Manchester on Friday night. They've already swept Windsor. I mean, they're there every year, and they're one of the handful of teams playing in the Hoophall Classic this weekend up in Springfield, Massachusetts. At number 4, St. Bernard dropped a spot from number 3. They played 1 game last week. Again, they played Hill House. They're also in this Hoophall Invitational, an inaugural event we're going to talk about later. Moving to number 3, Manchester. Again, who knows what would have happened had they gotten blown out, but they put it aside. Were able to rally from 27 points down to win the game against Windsor, 95-94. An incredible comeback, and this team is for real. Number 2, Notre Dame Prep, same spot as last week. Again, they faced Colby Cathedral. Been the best rivalry in the SWC over the last, 4 to 6 years. So it'll be interesting to see. That game will be at the University of Bridgeport. It's really kind of like too big for their small gym to have this there. So UB seats enough people so people won't get turned away. And number 1, with all 17 first place votes, still Notre Dame and West Haven. Again, they play Hill House this week, and they're playing in the Hoophall Classic on Thursday.
Man, Manchester's for real, Joe. I mean,
yeah, they are.
That's a heck of a win.
Yeah, I mean, when you're 27 down, I mean, it's like, hey, we'll get them the next time. But no, they came all the way back and won, again, at Windsor. It's a feather in your cap when you win a game against Windsor, home or away, especially on the road. And they did it.
And we had great video from Sean Patrick Boley of that game. It was cool to see it because you had all the baskets heading down the stretch there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for the girls' top 10, we're going to jump in here. No one left. No one came in. Mercy did slide down a little bit. So we're going to start number 10, Mercy. Their only losses are to Sacred Heart, Holy Cross, and Sheehan, all top 10 teams. Mercy belongs in the top 10 despite having 3 losses. Southington gets a big test from Woodstock Academy this weekend. We'll see how they do in the second half of the season up in the CCC. They've had a great start. Conard has won 7 straight since they lost to Glastonbury. They're hosting EO this Friday and have East Catholic, Simsbury, Windsor coming up ahead. And they also have a huge game January 29th against Northwest Catholic. At number 7 is Greenwich. The Cardinals remain unbeaten with second half games coming up against Stanford, Warde, Danbury, and Trumbull. The road's going to get a little more difficult for the Cardinals. At number 6 is Warde. Dave Danko gets win number 500. Ryan Gulbin has Warde and the Mustangs rolling right now. Number 5, Sheehan. They beat Hamden. They beat Mercy as part of their 9-game winning streak since their opening night loss to Warde. Sheehan is just rolling behind the Reeson sisters. Stanford coming in at number 4. The Black Knights remain unbeaten. They're playing up tempo. You can go on GametimeCT.com and read all about the Black Knights and their new strategy of playing fast. I went and talked to their coach and some players this weekend, and you can go find that story on our website. Number 3, Sacred Heart Academy, heading into the Hoophall Classic on an 8-game winning streak with Emily Mennillo scoring over 30 a night in the last 3 games. We'll talk about her in a minute. Number 2, Holy Cross. The Crusaders also head to the Hoop Hall unbeaten. Center Quinn Berry has been stellar in the first half of the season. And number 1, Northwest Catholic. They remain number 1. They remain unbeaten. They're the unanimous number 1. And like we said last week, next Monday, we all have that game circled, MLK Day, night, 1 versus 2, Northwest Catholic versus Holy Cross. Northwest Catholic has proven that they're the best team in the state right now. Holy Cross has proven they're the second best team. We're all really, really want to get to that game. Northwest Catholic has been led by Maeve Staunton, by Abby Casper. They've both been so good. They both scored 20-plus against Bristol Central, and they've just been awesome. So, again, not a lot of movement in the girls' poll, but the best teams are there. And there's a few teams knocking on the door that we can talk about in the coming weeks, but the top 10 remains the same here. Joe, I do know you were at a fun game this week, right? Hill House West Haven, how was that?
Yeah, you're right, Scott. Hill House defeated West Haven 64-48. Hill House jumped in the poll, as we noted, to number 8. West Haven was the only team to fall out. Hill House has played arguably the most difficult schedule over the first month of the year, as Hill House coach Bernard Sutton told GametimeCT after that game.
I mean, we definitely will be battle tested. You know what I mean? Our first 5 games this season are some of the toughest games I've had in the regular season in years. Like I said, including West Haven, we have a competitive schedule. I purposely picked teams to have us ready for when it's tournament time, and we're just going to go from there.
You know, Scott, I've dealt with Bernard for a long time, and their losses are to Notre Dame of West Haven and to Mount Vernon out of New York. And again, as I mentioned, they're going to face Notre Dame this week, and they're going to, for the second time, and they're going to face St. Bernard. So it's a rough schedule. So who knows if they'll even be ranked again? But in that particular game, they played in the little gym, not in the field house. They were able to pull away. Jared Coleman, Avery Sutton, they've got some players. They've got a nice, cohesive team. So I'm very interested to see how they do the rest of the way.
Yeah, that was a fun game. Last week, I speaking of coaches that have been around a long time, right. I got the pleasure of covering the Warde Trumbull game. Dave Danko won his 500th game, which is hard to imagine, but he became the 14th coach in Connecticut history to win that. When I saw they were playing Trumbull, I knew it might be trouble. And I said this game might be 30-29 because Trumbull just plays great defense. Warde plays great defense. They went on the over there. They got 35-34, but it came down to Peyton McIntosh making a free throw with half a second left to win that game. Hard-fought defensive battle. Danko's been there for 31 years. He gets win number 500. And I got a chance to talk to him after the game. So let's hear what Dave had to say after the game.
It's an accumulation of all these years, of all these wonderful kids that I had an opportunity to coach here in Fairfield. Don't forget, I started here. I never left. And a lot of coaches can't say, you coach in your backyard. I made an impact with fabulous kids. Not only me, but they allowed me. They believed in me, and they trusted me to succeed.
It's an incredible accomplishment by him. He's been coaching for a while, and he deserves it. He's been an amazing coach and mentor through my entire basketball career. He's been watching me since I was little, and he really puts his time and effort into the younger girls, which makes him a better coach.
What are you thinking during those free throws with
I couldn't look. I had my back turned. But they fought hard. There was situations. We were lucky. We were fortunate that she made a free throw there, and hey, we survived.
That was a really fun night. It was nice. They had a bunch of alumni there. A lot of the youth players were there. Danko's obviously a legend in Fairfield. He went to school there. He's been coaching there forever. Just a local legend, Dave Danko. One place, though, that Dave Danko will not be, and this is the thing I really want to talk about this week, because I know you're excited about it. I'm excited about it. I know it's one of your favorite things every year, is the Hoophall Classic up in Springfield. And this year now, the Hoophall Invitational, also in Springfield. They've got more and more teams coming. Joe, tell me about how it went from the Hoophall Classic to the Hoophall Invitational. How'd that happen?
Well, and talking to Greg Procino, who works for the Hall of Fame, basically they have so many people who want to go and people on the waiting list that they wanted to go to the Invitational. And that was something that they discussed, I guess, in the spring. And they started extending the invitations to people, various different states. I forget how many states exactly are represented, but Connecticut is well represented. I mean, West Haven boys, New London boys and girls are going, St. Bernard boys, as we mentioned earlier. Trying to remember who else, but a number of teams that will be playing games Saturday and Sunday at various places in the Springfield area. It's like a 14 bracket each one. So again, it's an opportunity. It's not the classic, but it's an opportunity for these teams to get a little taste of what it's like. You maybe go to the Hall of Fame and experience that with your team and practice in the area. And so I guess there'll be a championship in consolation on Sunday, January 19th. So, and Greg Procino, who runs the events for the Hall, basically said they were able to fill it up a lot more quickly than they thought.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing because, again, not everybody can go to the Classic. I mean, the Classic at Springfield College has 5 days worth of games, a lot of non-CIAC schools, and you're going to see a lot of college coaches there, I'm sure, to see some of the best players in the nation, because teams from as far as California are coming to Springfield this coming weekend.
Yeah, there's 2 girls teams going Thursday. On Thursday, Holy Cross is going to play Springfield Central, a Massachusetts school, at 3:00. That should be a good one. Holy Cross, obviously the number 2 team in the GametimeCT poll.
Right.
They were the Class L runner-up last year. They're in Double L now. Like I said, Quinn Berry, 5'11", junior center, has been playing really great, scoring in double digits in several games. Shania Howard's their team captain and leader of that team. Isabella Lombardo's another senior leader on that team. It will be interesting to see how the number 2 team in Connecticut does when they go into that environment. I don't know a lot about Springfield Central. Tried to find some information on them, didn't see a lot. But it's always interesting, isn't it, Joe, when you send a highly ranked team from your state up to play someone else, right?
Yeah, and not to steal your thunder, but I believe it's Holy Cross's first trip to the event. Again, they've had such success in Connecticut. And when you get that invite, it's not something you turn down. And on Saturday morning, I mean, Sacred Heart Academy is making its second trip in the last 3 seasons. They lost 2 years ago. They're facing Christ the King. So
Christ the King. I mean, that's a traditional power. They got a UConn recruit on that team.
Yes.
I mean, Christ the King is one of the most synonymous names with high school basketball in the country, especially when you grow up in the Northeast, right? That's what I heard about as a kid. Christ the King, Christ the King.
Yeah,
so Shaw's going to have its hands full for sure. In that game, they're number 3 in the poll.
At 9 a.m. That's a tough start. But right? Listen, but you, I mean, I'm looking at the schedule. They on Saturday they're at Springfield College. They'll be playing 8 games.
Yeah.
Same on Sunday, and then 5 or so on Monday. Excuse me. But again, if you get the opportunity to go, you don't say no. That rhymes.
You don't say no. And Sacred Heart's been there before.
Yeah.
And Sacred Heart right now is being, Lila and Peyton D'Erico are playing really well. Sacred Heart always comes at you in waves with substitutions. I just want to take a minute. I want to pause for like a minute and just talk about Emily Mennillo, and then we'll get back. We'll go to the boys, Hoophall. But Emily Mennillo is she's a senior. She's committed to Franklin Pierce, and she has been on fire. The last 3 games, she has scored over 30 points in each of the games, and Sacred Heart spreads their scoring around. Like, that's how they're set up. So for her to score 30 tonight is really significant. The SEC has a lot of talented players, but she had 30 in a win over rival Hamden. She had 33 against Law, and then she had 34 in a win against Mercy. Mercy and Hamden, those are legit teams. It's not like she's doing this against the Little Sisters of the Poor or whoever. Those are 2 top 10 quality teams. The state MVP race is wide open for the girls at this point, but Mennillo's in the conversation. Like, we got to put Emily Mennillo in the conversation, and she's going to Franklin Pierce, who, not a great president, but it's a nice college, beautiful campus, and a good mascot. We'll save a Franklin Pierce conversation if Hearst ever starts a history podcast, though. But back to the Hoophall. Joe, what are some of the games and some of the kids that we should be watching for on the boys' side of the Hoophall?
Well, Holy Cross is the second game of the day on the first day of the tournament on Thursday. They play at 3 o'clock, as you alluded to. That is followed by the Notre Dame West Haven boys, again, the number 1 team in the Game Time poll since the end of last season. They're facing Andover, Mass., so it's kind of like a home game for Andover. I mean, Notre Dame played in that Florida tournament, so they've seen some great schools. Obviously, Abdu Torre, our reigning player of the year for GametimeCT, Landon Krieger, a number of other players. This is going to be a nice test for them. Again, a road game, basically. And people get to see Torre. If you can't get in the games at Notre Dame, and you get to go see them at a pretty large arena to go watch those games. That is followed by East Catholic. They're facing Burke High School in Massachusetts. This is a program, East Catholic, that's been number 1. It's won 3 straight Division I championships before Notre Dame last year. Braden Jones, 6'8", forward for East Catholic, averaging 16 points and 9 rebounds per game. Sincere Folk is averaging 16 points and 7 assists. And Joey Montalvo, you may recognize him, a receiver for East Catholic on the football team, made it to the playoffs. He's kind of the defensive stopper, and he's a guy who can be a spy shooter, one of those spot-up guys. And also on opening Friday schedule will be Richfield. Richfield's getting their first invite to this classic. Richfield made it to the Division I semifinals the last couple of years. They probably have been on the Hoophall's radar. Again, they don't have any great standout guys, but Peter Spikowski, senior, is averaging about 14 points a game and about 8-9 rebounds. And the other guy, Jason Genova, he's a sophomore. St. Joe's was down, I think, 17 or so on Friday, came all the way back to take the lead, and Genova hit the shot at the buzzer for Richfield to beat them. And, again, he's somebody that Santa Barbara in California is going to have to watch out for. But I would imagine Santa Barbara's got a really good team. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Santa Barbara these days with all the fire stuff. So they're coming 3,000 miles to play in this game, and I think Richfield is going to have its work cut out for it. But again, it's about the experience, Scott. I've been to a number of these. I remember when Hill House played in, I want to say 2007, and they played Jared Bayless, a team out of Arizona. And obviously he played in the NBA. So it's a great experience. It's 5 days worth of games. It's really worth your time to go see a day's worth of action. Even if it's not the Connecticut teams, go see the prep school teams. It's just worth
There's
it.
So much
Everybody
talent
wants to come.
At this thing.
What's that?
There's so much talent on display at this thing. I mean, if you're a high school hoops fan, go see this. Springfield's not too far, man.
And there's top players ranked in all these, these recruiting polls, and the top players in the country. So it's not like you're, again, if you don't want to go see Connecticut, you want to see a higher level, this is where you want to go.
What day? Are you going to be up there?
I am going to be up there. I'm planning on being up there Thursday and Friday.
I love it. Do you ever go to the Hall of Fame too?
Yeah, I went last year. It's the first time I had been there since they redid it. So I'd been there a long time ago. It's really because all these kids will get a chance to go to the Hall of Fame if they want to. Some will stay overnight. My guess is East Catholic will travel up and travel back. But that's part of the experience. And you don't get to go see a Hall of Fame and a game in the same day usually. So this is an opportunity to go to the birthplace of basketball.
Yeah, it's kind of weird Hall of Fame. You're almost like entering through like a strip mall, and then you're.
You're right. It kind of is.
I was like, am I going in Jersey Mike's or am I going in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, that's right. That's right. They do have a Jersey Mike's there. I forgot about that. But
no, they're like, no, it's the entrance to the Hall of Fame. But that court they have at the bottom level of that with all the old baskets and the kids can shoot, and I love that. I love that. That was a good Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So more from the Hoophall, Joe? Or are you? Is that all the Connecticut teams we got going?
Yeah, we got. I think between that and the Invitational League, we have enough representation. But again, I mean, 5 teams from the Nutmeg State going to play in the Hoophall, I think is a pretty good thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome for those schools too.
Yeah.
And anytime you can go outside and just play against the best in the country, you have to take the opportunity. There are a few other girls' games around outside the Hoophall coming up this weekend. Mercy at Foreign. I think we have 2 of the better players in the SEC, and Faith Doyle and Manny Beningi playing in this game. Mercy is 6-3 as the week begins. I told you about their losses, who are all the top 10 teams. Foreign 7-2. This is a big test for Foreign. We'll see if they can get by Mercy here. Also, Friday night at 7, number 4 Stanford has to go to Richfield. Stanford is unbeaten. They're playing great with Caitlin Fox and Jalen Presley and Rebecca Kaplan and Taylor Runkarori. And they've all led in scoring at different times. There's no harder place to go play on a Friday night than taking a road trip up to the Tigers' lair in Ridgefield. It's the same for the boys, same for the girls. Rob Colonnay will have Ridgefield ready to play in that game. So Stanford better look out. I'm sure they do not like making that road trip. Also Friday night out east, NFA at East Lyme. Courtney Gomez has NFA playing really, really well. They beat Bacon. They have big out-of-conference wins over Newtown, Pomperog from the SWC. Their losses are to Conard and Richfield, both in the Conard Holiday Tournament. And then East Lyme is a legit contender in the ECC and in Class MM. They also beat Newtown, also beat Pomperog, and their only loss is to Woodstock Academy. And speaking of Woodstock Academy, they play a huge game on Saturday against number 9 Southington. Saturday at 1:30 at Southington. If you got nothing to do and you're not at the Hoop Hall, dip into Southington and check this one out. You know, Woodstock lost its first game of the year this week to Fitch. Southington is 7-1 as the week begins. They're ranked in the top 10 for the second straight week. They beat Ridgefield, but lost to Conard in that same holiday tournament. This is a really interesting game. Southington's schedule, other than games against Berlin, Newington, and maybe New Britain, is there's a lot of winnable games for them second half of the season. So I'm very interested to see how Southington does against Woodstock Academy here. Joe, are there other games for the boys outside the Hoop Hall that you kind of have your eye on?
Yeah, Scott, a couple of games caught my eye on Wednesday. Number 8, Hill House at number 4, St. Bernard. St. Bernard is their school is a mile from the Mohican Sun Arena, so that they've spent a lot of time in that arena, but this one's on campus, and Hill House, coming off a Notre Dame and West Haven game, is going to have to make an hour drive, so this will not be easy. The other game, Holy Cross at Northwest Catholic, the 6th-ranked team. Holy Cross is just on the outskirts of the top 10. Both teams have Division I prospects. Elijah Parker from Holy Cross is going to Central Connecticut State, and Ryan Tolliver from Northwest Catholic is committed to Northern Kentucky. So that should be an interesting game. And then obviously we've talked about them ad nauseum, but Manchester hosts East Catholic in the Battle of Manchester, and they'll face each other again. But on Friday is the first time, 6:30 p.m. Get there early. It's going to be a big-time game.
That should be packed, right? I mean, how small is that gym?
It's not that large, so yeah, I would suggest getting there early. I mean, we talked about this comeback, and again, the teams have come back from behind before, Scott. But our Sean Patrick Boley was there, and he got a lot of video, and you can check out some of that on our Instagram account and see.
But when you come back against Windsor, Windsor's one of those teams, right? Like they're one of the special teams in the state. People recognize them as that. When you come back against them, it's a little different than coming back against some other team that may not have the name recognition as Windsor. So
correct.
Everyone is on alert for Manchester now. They're not taking anybody by surprise, and that seems like it's going to be a great night up in Manchester against East Catholic.
Yeah. And again, if you don't want to go to the Springfield, you go there.
Go there. There you go.
Yeah.
There's plenty of games in Connecticut to see.
Plenty.
So listen, this was a good one. I do want to say before we leave, we all heard about the player from Holy Cross this week that collapsed after the game at Kennedy. He had a cardiac incident. Yes. They had to use the defibrillator on him. Our thoughts are with him. We hope he's doing well and getting better, and will make a full recovery. You hate to hear about stuff like that, but it seems like everyone, the emergency people and everything were in place, and some people really stepped up and saved this kid's life, frankly.
Well, Mike, a couple people, Ryan Gomes, former Providence and NBA player, and Mike Papali, the Fairfield prep coach, they both promoted in their own way the AEDs and how important they are and how all these should have updated equipment. And AED saved his life. I mean, again, it happened after the game. Like you said, you don't want to see this thing, but it shows you how important and how quickly emergency personnel has to react. And
if
they don't know.
If they don't have the AED, this is not this is a tragedy. And
this is a different conversation.
Yeah. The referee collapsed on the court and had a heart attack in Stanford a couple years ago, and they used the AED on him on the court and saved his life. I mean, he would not be alive if it were not for that thing. Yeah. So, the things that people have done in recent years with the AEDs and learning how to help people that are in distress has been tremendous. So.
Well, Mike Papali is a survivor from the same thing happened to him. That's why he's such a proponent of it. It happened in his senior year at Sheehan.
Yeah.
Back in 2006. So he's had to watch what he does his entire life, but it's like a crusade for him. And it is a big deal for him. And it is important. These are life-saving measures. Simple as that.
I mean, we all grew up with Hank Gathers and Reggie Lewis and all that stuff, and that's the stuff you hope to avoid. And you hear less and less about it because of things like having AEDs and having people that are CPR certified. So
absolutely.
Well, listen, Joe's going to be up in Springfield. If you see him up there, please say hello. Let him know what you think about the podcast. We're already hearing a lot of great things about the podcast. But for Joe, for producer Danny behind the scenes, we will see you next time on Courtside with GametimeCT.